This story begins with two babies born in 1921, one on the West Coast and the other in the heartland of America. Eleanor May Coulter was born October 1st in Albany, Oregon, to parents James Coulter and Edith Hannon Coulter. The youngest of two, she was especially fond of brother Jim, who was 18 months her senior. Orville Roy Hughes was born in Armstrong, Illinois on June 15th to James Blaine Hughes and Amanda LaRue Hughes, the youngest of three following sisters Opal and Hazel. Both came from farming families. Eleanor's father had a peppermint farm on an island in the Puget Sound in Washington state. Orville's father worked as a farmer as well as in industry. The 1930s brought the Great Depression and more hard times for them personally when they each lost their fathers at around age 10. Their mothers later remarried. They grew into teenagers, graduating from high school. Orville in 1939 from Danville High School in Illinois, and Eleanor from Myrtle Creek High School in Oregon. Though he grew up in the rural countryside, Orville had a fascination with all things military. He joined the ROTC unit at the University of Illinois, training for the cavalry. Eleanor went on to business college and then worked for the Pacific Co-op in Roseburg, Oregon. The attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 changed life for everyone. Eleanor volunteered to become a plotter checking the coastline for enemy ships, submarines, and planes, and this was in addition to her day job. In 1943, Eleanor enlisted in the Women's Army Corps, initially called the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps. Her first assignment was in New Guinea, doing secretarial and admin work in the headquarters building known as the Pentagon of the Jungle. Post-war, she was assigned to Manila in the Philippines. She reached the grade of Tech 5, the equivalent of corporal. For her service, she was awarded the Asian Pacific Campaign Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, and the American Campaign Medal. Also in 1943, the Army called Orville and his ROTC buddies up for active duty, even though they had only completed 3 years of college. He went to the Officer Candidate School at Fort Benning, Georgia, and was commissioned in the cavalry. His initial assignment was in an armored cavalry unit at Fort Riley, Kansas. In 1944, he was sent to Europe, where he served in Germany. During a battle in the farm fields near Ostfeld, Orville was wounded. Through God's divine providence, he was captured and held by the Germans in a hospital in France. He was held for several weeks until the advancing American troops caused the Germans to flee, and the hospital was liberated in April of 1945. For this, he received the Purple Heart and POW Medal. His other military awards include the Bronze Star, Silver Star, the Legion of Merit, and the Army Commendation Medal. He graduated from the University of Illinois after the war. Their love of service for their country led them to each other. In 1947, Eleanor joined the Special Services in Germany, providing activities for servicemen there. Orville, as a young officer, brought his men to compete in basketball. The rest, as they say, is history. They dated and later corresponded after she returned home to Oregon. Upon his return to the U.S., Orville drove his red Pontiac convertible from Kentucky to Oregon in order to propose in October of 1951. She accepted, and by his account, she did not need a lot of convincing. The wedding was December 8, 1951, at the Post Chapel in Fort Knox, Kentucky, his new assignment and the home of the Armor Branch. They honeymooned in New Orleans. Eleanor then became an Army wife and mom to Rick. Steve was born 10 months later. Eleanor took the boys to her home in Oregon while Orville served in the Korean War. He would return home from the war in 1954. Fort Meade was the next assignment from 1954-55. Debbie was born in March of 1955. The family of 5 moved to Monterey, California, so Orville could participate in the Foreign Area Specialist Training Program. Having learned German while stationed in Europe, revealed an exceptional talent for languages. His special focus was now the Russian language. They moved again to the East Coast so Orville could pursue a master's degree in political science at Columbia University in New York City. He completed the program in 1957. This was followed by 2 years of further foreign area training in Oberammergau, Germany. While they were there, they enjoyed the winter sport of skiing. Jennifer was born in February 1958 in Munich, Germany. Orville was then assigned to the Potsdam mission in Berlin. It was a city divided into 4 sectors and governed by the Germans, Russians, British, and Americans. The United States Military Liaison Mission conducted information gathering through observation and some cat and mouse games. If an officer was caught, he would say he was on a diplomatic liaison mission. The reliable work done there was vital to keeping the Cold War cold and the U.S. abreast of Soviet weapons and capabilities. In 1961, they moved home to the U.S., and specifically to the homestead they purchased on Stansbury Mill Road in Moncton, Maryland. Eleanor settled the family and handled the house closing, while Orville went to the Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. He then was assigned to Fort Holabird, Maryland. On November 22, 1963, the day Kennedy was assassinated, Orville arrived in Vienna, Austria for his next assignment as the military attaché. Utilizing his language skills, continuing to gather intelligence, and attending many social and diplomatic functions made this a very exciting time. Travel through Europe and new cultural experiences benefited the whole family. Upon their return from Vienna, Orville worked in Washington, D.C. in the Office of Personnel and was promoted to full colonel. He ended his military career at Fort Holabird in combat intelligence planning. He retired after 27 years in the Army in 1969. Following his Army retirement, Orville joined the Office of Budget Management for the City of Baltimore during the administration of William Donald Schaefer. In addition to shaping up the budget office with military precision, Orville had a volunteer job as the city's Russian language interpreter. This was useful in the Baltimore Sister City Exchange Program with Odessa, Russia, and also in aiding foreign sailors, businessmen, and tourists. Besides her most important job as mother and homemaker, Eleanor tried her hand at other ventures such as selling real estate, driving a school bus, and working at the Towson Library. Following retirement from the city, Eleanor and Orville moved to the Poconos. 5 years later, they returned to Maryland and built their dream home right next to the original homestead and property. In 2001, Eleanor and Orville celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. During the past decade, Orville has been active in Veterans Affairs. These include the Military Order of the Purple Heart, the Maryland Joint Committee on Veterans Affairs, and the Military Officer Association, just to name a few. Orville's passion was for veterans to share their personal histories with school-age children. He took the initiative to sponsor a resolution that would encourage Maryland Public Schools to invite veterans into the classrooms twice a year around Memorial Day and Veterans Day in November. The resolution handily passed in the Senate 43-0. For this, and all of his patriotic efforts on behalf of fellow servicemen and women, Orville was chosen as the 2005 Maryland Veteran of the Year. Their children and grandchildren's families have all been a part of Eleanor and Orville's legacy of serving our country. Their family now includes 4 adult children and their spouses, 14 grandchildren, and 18 great-grandchildren. We salute them as veterans and patriots, world travelers and model citizens, good friends and neighbors, parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents, and lastly, and most important of all, sweethearts. Congratulations, Eleanor and Orville, on 90 years of life and 60 of it together. We are all blessed by having you in our lives.